What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Why the Hype, where we talk about certain series and discuss if they are worth all the hype or not. Last time we talked about the game Halo 5 for Xbox One. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. I think we had a good time. This time, however, I decided to make things really hard on myself, and we are going to tackle Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I am going to say that Metal Gear Solid 5 was in fact my first Metal Gear game I've beaten, but I will make sure my personal bias aren't shown. I have since then, however, played almost every game in the series, so don't worry too much. Metal Gear Solid is a game that was published by Konami back in 1998, back on the good ol' original PlayStation. The game's creator was Hideo Kojima, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Now, if you're a fan of the series, you're probably like,
but Joseph, Metal Gear Solid wasn't the first game in the series. Metal Gear was.
and to that, I say you are absolutely correct. Metal Gear Solid is the third Metal Gear game, but in this Why the Hype, we are mainly going to be focused on the Solid series. So anyway, moving back on to Metal Gear Solid 1. It was a single-player tactical espionage game, which was the smart way of saying it was a spy game. You played as Solid Snake, and your job was to beat the terrorists and make sure nuclear weapons weren't made. Well, that's the shorthand of the story, but we'll handle the story aspects a bit later, probably. Metal Gear Solid 1 was produced with amazing quality for its time. It sold over 6 million copies to date and scored a 94 on Metacritic. Needless to say, it was a hit, and with the attention it garnered, as well as the money it made, a sequel was almost guaranteed. It was even seen as one of the games that made the stealth genre as big and prosperous as it is today. 3 years later, we got the sequel known as Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. It was released on the PlayStation 2 on November 12th. Now, while this did everything the first Metal Gear Solid did, there were a few surprises. One specifically that some people still to this day can't come to terms with. That is the fact that we got a new protagonist whose name was Raiden. Now, although a lot of people were torn on how to feel about this game, it still outsold its predecessor by 1 million copies and got a Metacritic score of 96, which made it the 4th highest rated game on the PlayStation 2. Everything in this game was beefed up. The graphics, gameplay, writing, it was just a perfect sequel in my opinion, and I believe Raiden was a great addition to the series, even if his first appearance may have been a little off kilter. So, we usually see a trend. Most of the time when a game does this good, it usually gets another installment. Metal Gear Solid was no exception, of course, and by November 17th, 2004, we got just that. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater dropped the futuristic corridors in favor of a wilderness-themed setting. Now being more action-adventure oriented, the game allowed players to do much more and put us in to survive while getting our objectives done. Living off the land and beating up bad guys, this was probably the manliest game I have ever played. Now, although this is the third game in the Metal Gear Solid series, it chronologically takes place before the first two. We play as Snake, who would eventually be cloned, and that would give us our lovable Solid Snake. Metal Gear Solid 3 was just as over the top, if not more over the top, than the previous games. With wonderful characters and a once again crazy Kojima story, it was an amazing ride from start to finish. It sold 3.6 million copies worldwide by August 2005, scoring a 91 on Metacritic. Although not being the highest rated, it is seen as one of the greatest video games of all time, and believe me, it shows. It still holds up to this day, so if you have the chance, definitely give it a shot. This time, instead of 3 years, we got a new Metal Gear Solid 4 years later, and its name was Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots. This game was a sequel to the first two Solid games, that being Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2, of course. This game was a huge step up to 3 in many ways. The story, while still having that very campy feeling, was actually pretty dark. We are now playing as the rapidly aging Solid Snake, and we really start to feel the impact age is having on him. Now, while Metal Gear Solid 3 had some online features, 4 introduced Metal Gear Online, which was a huge multiplayer offering many modes and gave players a chance to play with others in the world of Metal Gear Solid. We get to see all the characters we know and love, but now in the futuristic year of 2014. Well, I feel lied to. Anyway, the game sold 6 million copies worldwide and gained many awards, making it a complete success. Okay, so those are all the main series games up to Metal Gear Solid 5. Of course, there's also Metal Gear Solid Rising Revengeance, which is still a dumb name, but it's not a solid game. And by solid, I mean a Metal Gear Solid game, so we're gonna ignore that for now. It is amazingly fun, though. So now that we got through the history, this would be the point where I tell you the story. I'm gonna do one better, however, and provide a link to an incredible article that will get you up to date with the series extremely quick. Now, of course I could simply restate everything, but I believe this article deserves deserves some attention. The article is on Games Radar and is titled The Long Convoluted Story of the Metal Gear Solid Saga So Far. It is written by David Roberts, so shout out to you, man. And a lot of work went into it, so definitely check that out, guys. Link will be in the description. Let's just say, I know I said Halo's story was a little convoluted, but wow, Metal Gear Solid is probably the most intricate story in gaming. So yeah, I kind of cheated, but hush. Time to get to the review portion of the video. Metal Gear Solid 5, man. Where do I start? First off, they released the demo at full retail price, and that game was known as Ground Zeroes, as a little taste of what we'd get in the full game. So that was already questionable. Another thing that was kinda rocky was the fact that Kojima, the creator of the series, and Konami, the publisher, were on terrible terms, so nothing was even guaranteed. But eventually, we did get the Phantom Pain on September 1st, 2015. This game promised a whole lot, and had a whole lot to live up to, so let's break it down and see if it was worth the hype. So let's start off with the design and graphics. I'll get straight to the point with this, as I usually do. It's a gorgeous game with gorgeous landscapes. Of course, there's only so much desert one could take, but hey, there's also forest areas, so you know, there's some variety, I guess. Character models look great and character designs look interesting. Quiet, the female lead of the game, a lot of people believe she was over-sexualized, but I mean, it is Kojima, so that's kind of understandable. But I do agree that that design wasn't needed at all, but I'd be lying to say if I didn't find it interesting. Speaking of characters, I think everyone was well realized in this game. Each character had regrets or a past that they were still lingering onto, and although it wasn't explored as deep as I wished it was, the surface level information wasn't too bad. But with that, let's move on to characters and stories. See, this is where the game makes it hard for me to recommend. All of the Metal Gear games thus far had exciting, zany, thrilling adventures with over-the-top bad guys and larger-than-life characters. But Metal Gear Solid 5 falls short completely. The story was interesting at times, but nowhere near the other games. The characters, like I said before, showed a hint of interesting stories, but again, they were just never explored, unless you listen to the cassette tapes, which sadly told the story and relationships better than any of the cutscenes in-game did. Anytime I ask a Metal Gear fan how they felt about 5, they always tell me the same thing, that it was a huge letdown. Now, it being my first in the series, it hurt to hear that considering how much I adored it, but it is true, the story and characters were far too weak in contrast to the earlier games. But you see, the story wasn't what made me fall in love with the game, it was the gameplay, and wow, I cannot in any way describe the joy I had playing this game. It was the first Metal Gear Solid game that was completely open world, and it amazes me how much time and work must have went into making this living, breathing world. With two pretty big biomes, one being a desert and one being a forest, you really feel like you are a spy. It's uncanny. Not only was the game converted to open world, but the controls were improved, allowing for more fast-paced and interesting gameplay. You could go to an enemy base and it could be a different outcome every single time. The choice really felt like it was yours. This was one of the most immersive games, gameplay-wise, I've played in 2015. The new buddy systems were added, allowing you to have a partner with you during your missions. I loved this addition because it made everything seem that much more tactical. Speaking of the buddy system, my editor Frank here, yeah, he went through the entire first playthrough without D-Dog. As a matter of fact, he didn't even know D-Dog existed until he saw it online. So that's just to give you an idea of how great the system is. You could actually play the entire game without even encountering him. Also, Metal Gear Online was brought back, and while a lot of the game modes and features were taken away, the gameplay felt a lot smoother. You were able to pick from 3 classes, those 3 being Infiltrator, Enforcer, and Scout, which was interesting since each had their own abilities and whatnot. However, there's only 3 game types at this time, which are Cloak and Dagger, Comm Control, and Bounty Hunter. Cloak and Dagger was the most interesting in my opinion. The game is set up in a similar sense to Call of Duty Search and Destroy, and I cannot believe that is the second time I made this comparison. It's 2 teams, attackers and defenders, but what makes it really cool is the attackers are invisible and their goal is to capture one of 2 intel discs. Tons of fun to be had. Comm Control was a basic take on domination, and Bounty Hunter is a team deathmatch, although instead of getting the most kills, the goal is to reduce the number of tickets the enemy has while maintaining your team's tickets. Kill someone, they lose a ticket. But things get interesting because over time, you get a kill and you gain a bounty. What a bounty does is if you capture someone, you gain tickets equivalent to the number of bounty that player has. This allows for amazing combats, which is always fun, of course. Some complaints I have, however, are when me and my friends try to play this multiplayer, almost every time we are put on opposing sides, in a party or not. Now, I could just be dumb, but I couldn't find any way around this. Another multiplayer aspect this game has is mother bases. Every player has their own base that they could upgrade and design. What's really cool, however, is that you could attack other players' bases for resources, or you could get attacked. It's a really cool addition, and it doesn't matter how good you are, trust me, you'll be having fun with this feature. Another problem I need to mention is how awful, and I mean how completely awful, the side ops missions were handled. Side ops are side missions, most being optional, that just add some fun and interesting side plots. This game had a habit of reusing the side ops a lot. I swear, there was one side ops mission I played, no joke, 5 times before it finally stopped pretending like it was a new mission. It's either destroy this thing, capture this guy and or thing, and the worst thing is it just reuses assets, and it's so obvious. So I think it's about time I wrap this up. This game, oh, this game. So many people are disappointed, and it puts me in this really weird position. Although it didn't do the series justice with its storytelling, and it cut a lot of content out, a lot of it could do with the fact that everything was going on between Kojima and Konami. But again, I had so much fun with this game, and it's the game that got me into the series. However, this isn't meant to be a biased review. Well, not completely biased anyway. So I'm going to unfortunately have to say this game was not worth all the hype. However, what I will say is that this is one of the most fun and well-developed games I've played, especially in the stealth genre. So I do still recommend it regardless of the fact that the story isn't up to snuff with the rest. I do think it's a welcomed addition to the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Hey guys, so I just wanted to take this time, as always, to thank you for watching and remind you that if you liked what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, share the video, do all that stuff. It really helps out the series and all, I don't need to keep going on about it. You hear it all the time, but I would appreciate it. I also wanted to take this time to say that even though I did say that this game is not worth all the hype, I know there are going to be some people that are really mad at it, and there's going to be some people that are really happy that I went that route. I just want to remind everyone that I'm comparing it to the storytelling of the old games, and why the hype is to see if something lives up to the hype. And a lot of the fandom who creates the hype even admit that this game didn't live up to the hype. So it was only natural that I gave it this answer. I do still recommend this game. I do think it's an amazing game. I still play it to this day. So I just wanted to get that out there. Also, I'm doing this video at like 5:27 in the morning. I'm really tired. And yeah, so thank you for watching.